Easter Sunday, 1934. Hamer has been on the trail of Bonnie and Clyde for 50 days and nights. And then another incident, all too familiar to Hamer, enrages a nation. It is aroused and impatient with so many cold-blooded murders. An elderly farmer, William Schieffer, recovering from a fine Easter dinner, examines his flower beds. The cars drive by in front of his farm, which lies along the highway between the city of Dallas and the town of Grapevine.
Look, his head bounced like a rubber ball.
Fingerprints found on the bottles were those of Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker. Recalling Bonnie's slaying of the officers in cold blood, Frank Hamer remarked, "She was, begging your pardon, a bit of a female dog," unquote.
The dozen proven murders, there must have been 2 or 3 times that many that they actually killed, but 80% were law officers, and some of the others were killed as bystanders when they were actually after law officers. It wasn't a disrespect for the law, it was an absolute psychotic hatred of the law that these two people had.
April 6th, Miami, Oklahoma. Bonnie and Clyde, accompanied by Henry Methven, get stuck in the mud near Miami, Oklahoma. Cal Campbell, a constable, and Deputy Boyd stopped to assist them.
Well, you folks seem to be needing some help.
We don't need any help from the law. Go!
The wounded man was taken on a wild 14-hour ride before being released.
Well, it's been so long ago.
In 1934,
What happened?
Sophia
I was
Cook
sitting out in the
of Ruston,
swing.
Louisiana, and an acquaintance
House
were taken
down
for a ride they'll never forget.
And waiting to go back to work. And then in a few minutes, Mr. Darby, a man who was boarding there, came out to the front and said that someone had stolen his car, and he wanted to borrow my car to go catch him. We followed him, and finally, we decided that we had to get back to Ruston and go to work. So we turned around, and just as we were fixing to come back to Ruston, this car came going very fast and flagged us, and this man got out, who later proved to be Clyde Barrow, grabbed Mr. Darby by the arm, and he had a pistol. When Clyde got out of the car, he had a pistol in his hand, and he came over to Mr. Darby and hit him at the back of his head, and just he almost was out completely. And then Bonnie grabbed me, and I just kept sitting in the car, and finally Mr. Darby said, Miss Stone, you better get out of the car. You better get out. Kept telling me that, and so finally it dawned on me that I had better get out of the car. So I got out, and they piled us all in their car, on the front seat. She wanted to know if Mr. Darby was my husband, and I told her emphatically no, that we were just friends. And she said, well, get in his lap. All four of you get on the front seat. Of course, we were just really frightened to death, both of us. I'm sure he was. I know that I was, because she had a pistol in her hand and kept it in my side the whole time that we were with them. And she wanted to know what business that we were in, what I did, and I told her that I was home demonstration agent and that I had been preserving some food over at the high school. And she said, oh, how hungry I am. I wish that I had some of that. And I laughingly told her she just take me back to Ruston. I'd give her all the food that she wanted. And though when we first got in the car, the conversation wasn't too friendly. Of course, I was begging to save our life, and I really believe that that is what saved our life, because she said later on in the day that if they hadn't taken a liking to us, that they would have killed us. And when we first got in, they were so mad because we were so close to their stolen car, and they had intended to rob the Ruston State Bank that day, and that was going to be the getaway car. So we upset their plans. And she said that that they were going to kill us both, and said that they were going to tie us, since we weren't man and wife, they were going to tie me to one tree and tie him to another tree, and that they would blow my brains out, and Clyde would blow Mr. Darby's brains out, that they were just going to get rid of us right away, because anybody ought to have had better sense than to follow a car like that. I think one of the things that might be interesting was that when she asked Mr. Darby what he did, he told her that he was an undertaker. And Bonnie laughingly said, well, we know one of these days that we'll get it. And said, but we'll have one last request, and we'll request that you embalm our body. She said, now, won't you get a big kick out of that? And she gave a ha, ha, ha. And later, as it happened, we both were over there to identify the bodies, and I don't know that Mr. Darby really helped with the embalming, but he was there. He had his finger in the pie enough to know that he was there anyway.